Now, at the G20 summit, when Barack Obama was asked about the issue, he says, well, look, everybody's obsessing over this issue of when we're going to leave Afghanistan. Yeah, because it's our longest war ever. We've lost over 1,000 men and women in that war. We've spent over $1 trillion in both wars combined. Yeah, I'm sorry for obsessing about it. And by the way, you just fired your top general there, and all of his men in that same Rolling Stone article say that the war is a lot worse than we even realize in America. So then when they asked Obama, hey, how about the timeline here? Are we really getting out by July 2011? First he says don't obsess. Then second of all, he gives you a general sense that we will, he's of course middle of the road as always for Obama. He says, well, we won't be pulling out right away. That's absurd, right? And of course, absurd. Even though the war is not working at all according to every source we've got in there. And he says, and we won't be staying there forever. Well, fantastic. Right, middle of the road. So other articles are saying that they're putting the timeline at about 5 years. So we're there for another 5 years. Now Nancy Pelosi says, look, we got to get serious about beginning withdrawal in 2011, and I'm not playing. My guess is she is playing. If history is any guide to what the Democrats are going to do about wars, they'll huff and they'll puff, and then at the end, they'll give the executive branch whatever they want. So this is part of the huffing and puffing. Now the thing that really flipped me out is, I know it's just rhetorical, but Obama on Afghanistan said, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. I was like, wait a minute, I heard that before. That's literally exactly what George W. Bush said about the Iraq War. But don't worry, Obama said, we're making progress. Man, that is haunting. That is chilling. So, all right, we swapped Iraq for Afghanistan, even though except we haven't really finished Iraq yet. Sometimes I get discouraged. So now, finally on this $3.9 billion, my God, man, all right, let's say we pull this, and there's value in that. But please, please, please don't keep bombing them and then not provide any reconstruction help. So all the bridges that we promised and the schools and the roads, if we don't deliver those, and all we do is just increase the war, and now Petraeus, they're saying, is, you know, going to make it tougher and going to come to their house. Nonsense talk. Nonsense, right? What are we doing here? God damn. I mean, look, you can sense my frustration, right? And the reason is, every single article I read says, what, winning? I don't know. What's winning? What, we make Afghanistan a little bit more stable? So now, when Obama was asked about, hey, wait a minute, isn't all of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan? He's like, yeah, okay. But listen, we have to make sure that we stay in Afghanistan because we don't want them coming back into Afghanistan and providing a base from which they could do terrorist attacks. Okay, look, there's some justification in that. There's some reality in that. The flip side of that is, well, under that logic, don't we have to invade every country and occupy it around Pakistan? Okay, well, you know, they could go to other countries. They could go to Kyrgyzstan and get a base there, and Kyrgyzstan's in a lot of trouble. There's revolt, there's upheaval. Should we go to Kyrgyzstan and make sure that Al-Qaeda can't ever set up a base there? Look, I know where Al-Qaeda already has bases, Somalia and Yemen. Does that mean we should go and occupy Somalia and Yemen so they can't have bases there? There's no end to this. There's no end to it. And when Leon Panetta was asked on This Week, over the weekend, on the ABC program, hey, how many Al-Qaeda do you think are in Afghanistan? He said, 50 to 100. Whoa, think about that. Now, I already knew that, but the CIA director admitting that on air, it's mind-blowing, man. I mean, look at that. We have 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. And at most, there's 100 Al-Qaeda in there? So we got 1,000 troops for every member of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. That's mental. Mental. Are there more than 50 Al-Qaeda in other countries? You better believe it, let alone Somalia and Yemen. I mean, at some point, there might have been more than 50 al-Qaeda members in the United States before 9/11. And Germany, and Italy, and England. Do we occupy everyone? And the more you look into it, man, I mean, look, this is in a lot of ways obvious, and in a lot of ways, nobody in America is talking about it. And we need perpetual war, man. That's what we need. We need that military-industrial complex to keep getting those contracts. And those guys pay their congressmen and their senators and their presidents handsomely, whether they're in office with campaign contributions or they're out of office, and they get and they pay their generals handsomely. So look, hey, Vietnam, come on, we learned a lesson from Vietnam, right? Come on, oh my God, what a terrible, disastrous occupation. It didn't work, right? Vietnam, we learned a lesson. What happened? We didn't learn anything. That led to it was already part of the Cold War, but the Cold War kept going on, and in the Cold War, what happened? We had to keep spending a lot of money on defense, right? Build more nukes, build more nukes, build more nukes. Warring into the Pentagon. Okay, fine. Oh, we won the Cold War. Fantastic. Now we can power down, right? No, it turns out we got a war on terror. Power it back up. Invade Afghanistan. As Rumsfeld said, Afghanistan is not target-rich enough. Like, there's not enough stuff to blow up. So let's just start a war in Iraq for no goddamn reason. And now they're both churning along. It's been, over 8 years in Afghanistan. Wait, no, over 9 years in Afghanistan. I'm being a loose track. And soon are we going to be saying, how many decades have we been in Afghanistan and Iraq? And when you ask the president, he says, I don't have a crystal ball. Well, I do have a crystal ball. My crystal ball says you will stay there until the defense contractors say, we've had enough, we've gorged ourselves with so much money that, we might have some public relations issues if we stay there a little longer. So, on to the next war. When does it end, man? When does it end? All right, last thing. I got to repeat it. 100,000 troops, 50 al-Qaeda. 100,000 troops, 50 al-Qaeda. Are you fucking kidding me?